Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Scarlet Fu. We're counting you down to the closing bell, and here to help take us beyond the bell. It's a global simulcast with our friends Massar and Jess Menton. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms. Massar, interesting day here in the markets. I think we started this morning here looking like we were headed for a pretty big sell-off, and instead, at least for the S&P 500, we're setting up for the best day since late August.
Like, how do you make sense of this trade today? And I'm looking at, 1.6% higher on the NASDAQ, but I'm also looking at the S&P, Jess, and we're talking about broad-based buying today.
Also, when we came into today, the S&P 500 was on track for 5 consecutive weeks of losses, which would have been the longest since May of 2022. But if you look at it now, the S&P 500 is actually up for the week going into the closing bell today.
Yeah, of course, we were talking about yields and how they're really driving most of the action. The bond sell-off is still intact. It's come off a little bit, but it's very much still intact. Given that it's an up day in equities and this big turnaround, we're seeing volume about 7% above the 5-day average.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think it was interesting, too. You sort of think, okay, what are people buying, right? We know some of the big cap tech stocks are being bought hard today here, and there is sort of a broad-based nature to this, but there are also still some laggards, particularly when it comes to the cyclical space, particularly when it comes to a lot of consumer and retail stocks as well.
Yeah, and you don't want to be caught in the Wegovy or Ozempic conversations, because, man, that really weighs on a lot of names people thinking about.
Have you tried this Wegovy yet? or Ozempic or whatever?
No, but I know people who have, and it really does dramatically cut down the food you eat, and it really reduces your appetite.
I don't know if I like the sound of that. I do like the sound of the bells here because it means we're getting closer to the weekend here. And what we're shaping up to be a really, really awful week for the markets, looking a little bit better here on this Friday afternoon. We should point out the Dow Jones Industrial Average is higher by more than 200, almost 300 points on the day. That's about a gain of about 0.9% on the day. Now, we should point out it's still lower on the week, not enough to erase the losses that we saw from the previous days. The S&P 500 did erase its losses from the previous days, higher by 1.2%. And that's good enough for a weekly gain of about 0.5% or so. Similar story for the NASDAQ Composite and the NASDAQ 100, up about 1.6%, which is roughly what it's up on a weekly basis as well. And the Russell 2000 did get in on the action today, up about 0.8%. But remember, it was the big laggard earlier in the week, and those losses still sticking down 2% on a weekly basis.
Do I have this right?
Maybe not.
I'm looking at the S&P 500 for the week overall. Do you want to guess what the best performing stock in the S&P 500?
Isn't it like Market Access or Ever Life Sciences or something?
Yes,
How do you know
it's
that?
a fixed income. I looked that up earlier, actually. Yeah,
Why-
it's a
why
fixed
does that
income
surprise you?
electronic trading platform.
It's not a name we talk about a lot.
Because, I mean...
I'm just saying.
No, but I was just going to make the point here about the bond volatility and all the interest right now in
Makes
that
sense,
space. I mean, we
right?
had a lot of folks on TV, including Hamilton Reiner and a few other folks who really just talking this. There's a lot of appetite for this right now.
It's just fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Just I feel like, in terms of the outperformers, Scarlet, from week to week.
Yeah, and notably, CME Group is the third best performer, up 5.9%, going back to that idea of trading being a big driver here for some of these individual stocks. Edwards Life Sciences kind of shoehorned in the middle there. Okay, let's take a look at the industry group performances, because if you looked at this at about 10 a.m. today or even 11 a.m., it was flipped. There were so many more group decliners than advancers, but right now you've got big tech leading the way, software and services, media entertainment, and chip-related companies, each gaining at least 2%. Pretty sizable moves there. And then on the flip side, when you look at the laggards, they're all defensive type companies, telecom services, right? Big, heavy dividends, or typically they have richer dividends. Food and staple companies and consumer services, food, beverage, and tobacco also in the red.
All right, that's a great big picture. A lot of green there on the screen. So I had a lot of choices in terms of some of the gainers today. But as Scarlett mentioned, if I'd done it earlier in the day, it would have been a very different story. Hey, let's get to Pioneer Natural Resources, finishing just off its highs of the day, up about 10.4%. We know this story. This is the number one gainer in the S&P 500. ExxonMobil said to be in talks to acquire this company. This is according to Person Familiar. It would be its largest takeover in more than 2 decades. So basically, ExxonMobil really looking to become a dominant player, a U.S. producer specifically when it comes to shale. So Pioneer Natural as the target, no surprise to see it really up on the day. Want to mention the automakers today because GM, Ford, Stellantis, all gaining in today's session. This after the UAW came out and said that the three are going to get a break from new walkouts this week as contract talks continue to progress. There was some concerns that there would be some new walkouts. So nonetheless, you have GM up almost 2%, Ford up about about 0.8%, and then Stellantis up about 3% in today's session. Just quickly want to mention Disney, also an outperformer in today's session, up about 2.6%. It's not been a good year for Disney. It's down about 3-4% so far this year, but two analysts coming out making the case to take advantage of a drop that recently took the company to its lowest level in years. Seaport Global Securities starting coverage on the name, buy rating, $93 price target. We see Disney just finishing the day just about $83 for the Friday trade. And this one is for you, Romaine.
What's that?
Crocs.
Crocs. They're up today?
Crocs? You like Crocs?
What happened with Crocs?
Rallying a little bit
Why?
today. They unveiled a cowboy boot.
What?
Yeah.
Made out of the same material?
Wait, whoa,
as
whoa.
shoes?
Quiet, everyone, quiet.
Look at it.
Wait,
for
is
those
this
that,
real?
Yeah, no joke. Shiny croc embossed texture. You can see Western embossed stitching. Launches on October 23rd, so everybody get ready. It's
But
about
a round
100.
toe.
Well, I guess it could work, and a spur.
$120.
Which probably will get you flagged by TSA.
$120.
Spinning spur. I'm sorry for you guys on radio. You can't see it. We try to describe it, but
Yeah.
I think it would.
It's
what?
interesting. I guess when I go to the next leg of the Eras tour, I'll have something to wear.
I don't know. You're
Yeah.
really dashing in how you dress, your
Yeah.
flowers, you know.
I'm not
your
sure how
ears.
I got to
think
digest this
works.
a little bit. Jess, can you give us the decliners why I mold this?
I thought you were
that
going
was
to ask
quite the
because I'm
sight.
from Texas whether or not I'd wear them or not.
Would you wear them from Texas?
Oh, yeah, that's
I think I
right.
may pass. I think I may pass
Wow,
on
the
this one.
Texas
You know who
Texas
we should
woman
ask?
is bad.
Joe Weisenthal. He's a
Yeah.
Texan. He wears cowboy boots all the time. I want to find out if Joe would wear these Crocs boots.
Joe, call us.
Let us know. So, switching gears back to decliners here. Well, y'all brought up everything that was going on with this Ozempic threat causing a sell-off here in some of these candy beer stocks as well.
How did I miss this Crocs story?
I know.
My mind's still on the Crocs, too. I don't know how to switch over to
think the
this
rest
at
of
this
the show
point.
is
Your team just getting some nice pictures on air, so thank you guys.
Mondelez,
Matt, Will.
MDLZ, ticker
Aviel.
on that.
Mondelez.
Down 2.6% today. I mean, it was already, not surprisingly, worst day since yesterday, but this stock's already been under pressure this year. But this obviously tied into what we heard after that warning from Walmart on that threat from Ozempic. But then also Domino's, looking at that stock, DPZ.
I don't understand this. So we're just going to stop eating pizza and Oreos?
I'm not going to. I think.
And can't these companies, and if for some reason we do get to critical mass where every single person on earth is on some sort of Wegovy haze, can't they just pivot and just like start making salads or something healthier?
Well, wouldn't it be nice if actually food was healthier and so that we actually didn't need to go on Ozempic and Wegovy?
I have a secret for you, Carol Massar.
What?
There is a lot of healthy food out there. You just have to select it, instead of picking up the Cheez-Its and the soda and all that.
I have faith that there will be plenty of people eating pizza and cookies.
Wait.
When you walk into the grocery store, the first thing is vegetables and fruit. You probably walk right past that section, don't you, and go right to the bakery.
No. Look,
Okay.
I have a banana. That's my snack. As soon
But
as
you
I get
haven't
done
eaten it.
talking
It's just
with you
sitting there.
guys.
We don't even know if that banana's real.
Oh, Jess, save us.
Oh man, I didn't realize Joe Weisenthal was from Texas too.
Yes, he is.
My mind's still on that too. Anyway, I just wanted to point out too, the S&P 500 restaurant index down 1.3% today.
What?
Its lowest level close to about a year. And then Church and Dwight, CHD. That also falling close to 5% today.
Baking
Worst day
soda,
since
right?
July.
All right, before we go back to Crocs, let's just walk through the yield action that we saw here on a weekly basis. You had that 10-year up about 22 basis points here. And we're getting back into those days where, remember, we were always seeing these huge moves on a day basis and a week-to-week basis. Now, we should point out, we talk about this flip-flop that we've seen in the market today. There was still a sell-off in the bond market. Now, it did not end up as severe as maybe what it was earlier in the day here, but you're still talking about the entire curve still shifting higher by about 6 to 7 basis points. You're at solid 5-year on the 2-year, a solid 5-year on the 20-year right now. Your 10-year camped down right around 4.8. We'll just round it up. And the 30-year still flirting with another run towards that 5% level here. And this is the question I have is when does the market finally just get comfortable with what? 5%? Is that so bad? Did you actually look at the last time we were at 5, 6%?
Have you done that I was thinking because
I did do that. That's why I brought it up.
Well, thank you for doing that. But I keep thinking about, because they keep saying, these levels go back to 2007. And Scarlett, I don't know if you do this. I think about, okay, where was I in 2007?
Yeah.
Did I feel pain from the levels? No, seriously.
It's a different kind of pain.
But it was different, right?
It was a different kind of pain. What you didn't know back then was how many years we'd have near zero interest rates and all the different things that would engender. One thing to keep in mind, of course, is the pressure on the bond market is on issuance, right? How much new supply is coming on. There's going to be the 2-year, 10-year, and 30-year auction next week, in the same week that we get the big CPI report, because the focus really now is whether the CPI report will back up what we saw in today's jobs report.
I'm over the CPI report. Here's the thing. If you want to know how well the economy is going.
Okay. So we can just forget the CPI report because you're over it.
Yeah, I'm actually off that day anyway, so definitely forget it. But when we talk about economic activity, isn't that really more indicative, I think, of what the market kind of wants to see? I mean, I'm not saying inflation is important, but if the trend is down and that continues here, then it's the other economic indicators that are going to have much more of an outsized effect.
I care if just people have jobs, because if they have jobs, that maybe they'll, even if their balance sheets are low, they'll keep on spending, right, Jess? That was some of the conversation we had earlier.
It definitely was. Something I wanted to point out quickly, though, obviously earnings season is kicking off next week, but do you know what's also next week, next Thursday? The 1-year anniversary of the S&P 500 hitting its low last year.
Wow.
There we go. I've got a story with Elena Papina coming on Sunday.
I think we should all go to Crocs and buy cowboy boots to celebrate.
Is that going to help us?
It provides some economic momentum.
I notice they still have the holes in the front, though, right? Like if you're going to, I guess you're not going to use those for real cowboying.
Scarlett, don't you think he's going to go out and buy them? I can feel it.
I mean, I might.
Should.
We'll make sure to publish it all over
great.
social media when
You can wear them to go watch the Taylor movie in the theaters, and then go watch the Beyonce movie.
I feel like if you walked into a bar in Texas with these on,
Beyonce
you'd probably get
is
thrown
from
out.
Texas. She's from Houston.
No, would you be thrown out if you walked into a bar with these in Texas?
I mean, you'd probably get some looks for sure, but...
Yeah.
All right, guys. We got to wrap. Lots of fun. Great way to wrap up, certainly, the day and the week. Have a good weekend. Romaine's going to come back with Croc cowboy boots. I know it. All right, guys. Have a good weekend. We will see you again, our cross-platform radio, TV, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals. We'll see you on Monday.